Why love is a lie. Hi, everyone. I'm Apollonia Ponti. I'm your dating and relationship coach and founder of ApolloniaPonti.com, and I'm so happy to have you here with me. Now, I want to get something very, very clear across to you. Our lives and growing up, and basically the stigma or what we should call our overall perception of love, has been, I would say, chemicalized a little bit growing up. I do think that love is true, but the things that we have learned about love is a lie. And that's what I want to create this video about. And I'm going to break some things down for you. So let's get started. Number one is Hollywood movies. Remember that movie? And it's a Hollywood movie. It's Jerry Maguire. And at the end or in the middle of the movie, who knows when it was, he says, "You complete me." So one of the things that I have to say is our Hollywood movies have also been amazing and very entertaining, and I love them. But at the same time, it has actually made people think that this is what love is. That saying, "You complete me," also was a beautiful moment in the movie, but it also gave the wrong dynamic of what people think. In order to find someone else, this will complete you. Now, there's a difference between finding true love, soulmate, or whatever you may call it, and feeling whole and feeling loved and feeling like you can blossom in life and feeling so happy and magnificent and magnified in your relationship. But when you're looking for someone to complete you because you're not complete yourself, is where we go wrong. A lot of times in Hollywood movies, we think, okay, if it's not happening in our life like it does in this movie, if I'm not romanticizing and giving this girl my everything, or giving this man my everything, then that means that this is not love, or I'm doing it wrong. And what we've done is we've compared ourselves to all these Hollywood movies and think that this is the dynamic that's supposed to be showcased in our dating and our relationship lives. Number two is attachment. A lot of times we don't get taught what attachment really is. There's so many different attachment styles. And one of the things that happens in love, in relationships, and in dating is we start to get attached. And then we're like, where is this feeling coming from? And so we start to get really involved in this other person's life, and we start to attach to them because we feel like the pieces of us belong to them. And if they leave us, then we are broken. If they don't love us, then we're not enough. And then we become attached. You know what a big responsibility that is, to have somebody become attached to you, or you become attached to that person, and that person then becomes responsible for your own happiness. That's a huge responsibility that nobody can fulfill. Think about that. Number three is we're taught we have to have it to be whole. We're taught that we have to have love in order to be whole. So then the illusion of self-love gets completely diminished. The illusion of being oneself gets diminished in that thought. So when we're taught that we have to have love in order to be whole, we seek relationships to assume the value within us. And because we seek relationships to assume the value within us, we then become lost because the only value within you is the value that you will know. So what is it that makes us think these ways? I always often found myself at times, especially when I was growing up, thinking of things like this, and why love brought so much happiness, why love brought so much hatred, why love brought so much anger. And that leads me into the next tip. Tip number 4. No one says anything about the lessons to be learned in love. Man, I remember my grandfather always used to try to teach me lessons with love and being completely honest. But when we go to school, there's no teacher that gives us the handbook of love. And this is why my practice is so important to me, because this is something that we're lacking in life. Relationships are our biggest lessons. When we get into our first relationship, or our first loving experience, I should call it, or lusting experience, and sometimes we don't know the difference, which I have a video about, we get into these dynamics of relationships and we think, this person, because I love them, is supposed to be my forever first love or love. And sometimes it ends up happening when it's your first love, but sometimes it doesn't. And then we lose ourselves in the relationships. And part of losing ourselves into relationships are also lessons, which some may call mistakes. I'm a big believer in life that there is no mistakes in life. There are only lessons. And either the lessons are going to continue to show up for you to face and learn and grow from them, or they show up, you learn and grow from them. And then the lessons contribute and they get less and less and better and better. So no one in school and life, and sometimes not even in our household, do we get taught love. No one says anything about the lessons to be learned in relationships. So we go in dating blindly, in our relationships blindly, and then we are left stumped on why this person doesn't love us back. And instead of looking at ourselves and saying, what can I learn from this? I believe that love and loss are our biggest lessons in life. And this is what makes you grow to become that person. When I think about my relationships in the past, a lot of them were big lessons, right? And some of them were amazing lessons that amplified my life. And some of them were lessons that held me back, but then amplified my life because I knew I had a responsibility to play in those relationships, because I knew I wasn't showing up for Apollonia. I was showing up as the childhood me, the triggered me, the trauma me. So in order for me to get abundance in my marriage now, and the husband that I have now, I look back at all those lessons and I say, I would have never been able to have the person I have now if I didn't experience these lessons and show up for them. And also be here with you. Tip number 5. Have you ever heard that saying, opposites attract? I'm sure you have. Here's the thing that I have about this and why I think this is a lie. Doesn't mean that opposites don't attract. Let me be very clear. But here's what I've seen happen in so many of my clients' coaching sessions, just everything I've done and the years and experience that I've had in coaching of the realm of love and relationships and life. But we tend to get in relationships and we are maybe getting in this relationship for the reason that I shared in tip number 3, that we have to be whole with this person. And then we find excuses and we're like, oh, she's just so opposite. That's why we attract, because she's so different than me. But then our values, our boundaries, our foundational elements of life are not the same wants and needs. Maybe you find yourself being with someone that doesn't ever want to have children or get married, but you instead convince yourself that you'll convince them, which I'm going to get to I'm going to get into in the next tip. And you say, well, we're just opposite, and that's why we attract. So you start to cover up and you put a Band-Aid basically on why the relationship's not working. And you say, oh, it's because opposites attract. Because in our society, we've basically said, oh, wait, you're in a great relationship because you're opposite, but we don't define what that means. And that's the issue. Opposites attract in different ways, meaning I can use myself as an example. Me and my husband, we have the same foundational elements of life. We're on purpose together, basically. Our life is devoted to our purpose. I could not be with anybody else but my husband, probably, because he's an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, and our time is very valuable. Our first baby is literally our business because our life is about giving back to people. And that is our foundational element. And then our relationship does come in first as well, but we make time for that. And the time is very different than a lot of other relationships. So you can't compare yourself to what that is. But then I like to golf. He doesn't like to golf. He loves basketball. I love basketball. He believes in marriage. I believe in marriage. Do you see the foundational elements are aligned? He's an introvert sometimes. I'm an extrovert. We're a little opposite, but the foundational principles in the relationship are still there. Where people go wrong is when the foundational principles are being covered by, oh, but we're opposites, that's why we attract. And then it's chasing, toxicity, unhappiness, fights, maybe even drama occurs, which leads me into the next tip. Tip number 6 is you can change someone if you try hard enough, they tell you. Man, is this wrong? I want you to think of something. If you try hard enough to change someone, what are the odds that you would lose yourself? So then how can you love this person? When we get into relationships to try to change someone, typically that other person builds resentment towards us or we build resentment towards them. And the reason being is because nobody will internally change unless they really want it. And here's where people get misconstrued. I'm going to be in this relationship with her and I'm going to push her and I'm going to try and I'm going to fix her. And my art is in my doing, especially with men. They think this way is the doing is how they show love. And when this happens, the other person builds resentment or they get angry or they get frustrated. I'm doing everything I can. But instead, you got to think of it like this. You're in that playing field trying to fix them. But instead, the healthy way to do this is you got to fix them from afar and stay aligned with your values and principles. Listen, I love you, but you got to play in this playing field for a little bit and figure it out while I'm going to be here and supporting you from afar. But this is your job to figure out, and I'm here to witness it and to help you when you need me. But until you figure this out, we cannot come together. That is the difference. And lastly, people say, true love will solve all your problems. Oh no, honey, they won't. This is the thing about life is, again, goes back to the foundational element. Our society has taught us to believe that true love will solve all your problems. You won't have any problems. But relationships are constant work. And I can't remember the last time someone told me that besides my own learning and myself teaching other people. And that's what's wrong is like we don't learn the right principles of relationship. And there's so much misinterpreted or not really good feedback about relationships out there. And so what's really important to understand is when we believe that true love will solve our problems, that's not the truth. Life is about lessons constantly. We can call them problems, issues, whatever you may call them. But what true love does is it supports problems. It communicates. It shows up with compassion. And then the both of you can work through it. Now, true love does not solve problems if you don't put in the intent, if you don't work through your own personal problems. It actually just makes those problems arise for you to focus on. Love and loss are the two biggest things that will get you in line with who you want to be in life and what relationships that you want. Love does exist and true love does exist. But what I'm saying in this video is that there's so many things that we have been accustomed to thinking in our relationships, and we then expect them to be in our relationships, or then we expect to put this band-aid on it because this is the right thing to do. Because grandma and grandpa told me this, because mom and dad told me this, because this movie growing up, these books that I've read, fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter. It says this is the right way. But the only thing here in reality is we've got to figure out what we want before we figure out what someone else wants within us. So in order to find love, in order to be in love, and in order to find true love, it starts with you finding love within yourself. If you liked today's video, please comment below. Share this with a friend too. I inspire to help you guys understand relationships and love. If you feel like someone can contribute from this video or understand or needs to hear something like this, share this with them. I welcome your comments, questions, concerns below. I love hearing from you all the time. And if this is your first time visiting, I welcome you to subscribe because I have some amazing videos that I want to continue to share with you guys. As always, I'll see you in the next one. And remember, you are always loved.